Welcome to Grow Her Wings, a podcast by the Malou Project, a 501c3 based in Jacksonville, Florida, with a mission to connect girls to aviation. We are your hosts, Jen and Carrie, and we invite you to join us as we meet new people, talk to old friends, and learn new lessons on the path to inspire more of us to grow our wings.
Hi.
Hello. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Grow Her Wings, podcast by the Malou Project. And we are sitting here today with a great conversation. We're lucky to have her, Kim Campbell. So
Hello.
Thank you so much. We've been wanting to talk to you for quite some time. We wanted to interview you for when we were doing a blog, and then we started the podcast, and Jen and I have been discussing it would be really great to get a chance to speak with you. And for those of you that don't know, she's currently the chair for Air Power Innovation and Integration at the Air Force Academy.
So I got a new job. That's from last year. So I am now at about 4 months into being the director for the Center for Character and Leadership Development.
That's right.
Is that how you know Jason? Is Jason still out there, Harris?
I don't know. No, we've just connected on LinkedIn.
Okay. Yeah, but that's also the postponement of your still an active duty colonel, postponement of retirement for about a year.
Yes.
Yes. And she was an A10 pilot. I don't know, is that kind of like saying there's no such thing as a former Marine? So there's not really a former A10 pilot. So she is an A10 pilot.
A10 pilot, just not currently flying A10s. I'm actually flying the T-53, which is a Cirrus down at the Academy Airfield, teaching cadets how to fly.
That's awesome.
That would be pretty incredible.
It's fun. It's not flying an A10, but it's got its own unique challenges.
I'm sure. I had a conversation with somebody who came to fly with me when I was flying in North Carolina, and he had flown A10s before. And I was like, so is it different going from an A10 to a bunch of different turboprops? He goes, I have a lot less options to get myself out of a bad situation.
Yeah. Yeah, the weather and the mountains are a little bit more of an issue. I mean, they're always an issue in the A10 as well, but
right.
A little bit different when you just have a propeller and one engine.
A little much, but it was fun hearing his perspective on going from a jet to a turboprop.
Is this an aircraft that's like transferable to like a corporate world, like corporate flying, or flying for commercial people, or I guess CEOs. I don't even know how to say it really.
I think any airplane is certainly transferable. The nice thing about the A10 is it's multi-engine, so it helps a little bit.
It's always good.
A little bit smaller. What's that?
It's always good to have more than one.
Yes, I appreciate the more than one.
I've had a few opportunities where I've gotten to lose one, so.
Yeah, but
thankfully, knock on wood, I have not had the opportunity to lose an engine. I've lost a few other things, but no engines.
You've lost a lot of other things.
Yes.
The story most people are familiar with.
Some of them are hanging in bars, right?
Yes. There's a piece of my airplane right here over my shoulder. So,
Kim, you have a call sign.
I do. My call sign is Killer Chick. Yeah. Mostly people call me KC because it's a little bit easier and shorter to say, but the official call sign as given to me by the 75th Fighter Squadron is Killer Chick.
And, do we want to just jump right in there, Carrie? Like, what's that from? Because it's like the coolest story I've ever heard. But
yeah, I think we can go there. if she's willing to share.
Yes, of course, I'm willing to share.
Okay.
Yeah, so, my call sign is separate from I was actually named before we deployed. Okay. And so the call sign actually came before the mission in Iraq.
Okay.
So that, just showing up as one of the only females in the fighter squadron. It's just fitting call sign for an A10 pilot. There's always a story. It's always associated with about 10% truth, but that's about as much as I'll give right now.
That works. That works for me. I always joke because in AFSOC we don't have a name. It's not as big of a tradition, obviously, as in the fighter community. But my organization had something called a horde name, and I don't share mine. And when I do, I have the story that I share that's for public, and then there's the real story that. So it's just one of those things that seems to be true with call signs.
Is it?
There's the 10% truth story. It's, there's a lot that goes on that's made up and fun, and it's a, I don't know, good morale building event.
Is it, Carrie, is your call sign associated with anything written in a book?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it got published in a book. So, but it's yeah. I was wearing the name tag with it, and I was wearing the name tag when I met General Flo the song, and he thought it was my real name. And greeted me by it, and I was I was just wearing it as a joke name tag. And then from then on, I couldn't get rid of it. When he called me Captain Spankin'.
Captain Spankin'. And I have your autograph in the book that I have that story.
So, girls, things that you should think about before you say them out loud.
And agree to call them. Yeah. But killer chick, it can't be.
No, killer chick is pretty cool.
I'd be cool. It's all right. It's one that I can put on a name tag and stand up in front of the team at Red Flag as the mission commander and introduce myself and feel good about it. That's always we call it the Red Flag test. Red Flag being a big, massive training event with pilots from all over the world. And if you're going to stand up and lead a mission at Red Flag, it's nice to have a call sign that you're proud to say.
That's good. That's a good point.
And as a call sign, you can stand in front of a group of moms, right? And still feel like you're not offending anybody.
Yes, true.
So speaking of not want to say a group of moms, really, but I wanted to say thank you as well, because last year at EA Oshkosh, you met with one of our original scholarship winners.
Yes, I had a picture with her.
That was great. So thank you so much.
You bet. That's the best part about it, right? Like being able to go and share a story and then to meet, quite honestly, all the young girls and women afterwards that are just excited about aviation. And, it's refreshing. And it's, sometimes it's a lot of work traveling and talking and sharing things. But I think at the same time, if it gets more people, more girls specifically involved in aviation, it's all worth it. That's like the joy part of it. That's the part that makes me happy.
That's the part I keep trying to keep finding opportunities to do. And I know Jen has had a lot of opportunities to do that, especially when she was in Jacksonville. She took some girls up flying. So it's just fun to be able to do. So speaking of young girls starting flying, where did you start? What got you hooked? What was your introduction?
So my desire to fly and join the Air Force started when I was in 5th grade. And honestly, it's kind of a strange connection for me. And it's still me trying to wrap my head around it to this day. But I remember the Challenger accident very vividly. And when it happened, my mom and I think were watching the news, and I just felt so connected to those astronauts. And I don't know why. I didn't know any of them. But for me, it was like realizing that they died doing something that they believed in, something that was bigger and more important than themselves. And I just connected with that. And I decided fairly quickly after that I wanted to be an astronaut. And so I, 5th grade, told my parents I'm going to be an astronaut and started talking to them about it. And I think they were both in a little bit of shock because that really wasn't the path that my life was taking before that. And my dad had been an Air Force Academy grad and had spent 5 years in the Air Force. And so the more we talked about it, the more I realized that for me, I was going to go to the Air Force Academy, I was going to be a fighter pilot, and I was going to go on to be an astronaut. And those were kind of where my ultimate goals started. And once I set my mind to it, my parents were really thankful because then I actually started to try and work harder in school. And then one day at middle school, a couple, what I will say now as kids dressed in an Air Force uniform showed up. And that was my introduction to Civil Air Patrol because I saw, here were people that looked like me. Mm-hmm. And I talked to them right away and went home that night and told my parents I wanted to join the Civil Air Patrol. And that's kind of where I got my start and got some flying opportunities in Civil Air Patrol. and really just kind of the rest was, I was on a path from there, doing as well as I could in Civil Air Patrol, and then ideally trying to get into the academy.
I realize that there's not very many people who know what Civil Air Patrol is.
Mm-mm.
It's kind of a niche thing. How does someone, get into Civil Air Patrol or find out where it's at and get involved?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, non-COVID times. I think there are probably a lot of events and visits at schools. I think now they're doing things virtually, but Civil Air Patrol is an auxiliary for the Air Force, and they do cadet programs was really where was my involvement. They do other things, emergency services and things. It's all about cadet programs, which was development and leadership. And I just was fascinated by it. And I loved the challenge of progressing in rank and learning how to lead people, learning how to march and wear a uniform. And so I think, how do you get involved? I think online now is the way to do it, because I don't think there's as many visits to schools. But it was, for me, it was definitely where I got my start, my introduction to the military. And then when I showed up to the academy, it wasn't such a shock to the system. I knew how to wear a uniform. I knew how to march. Like, that wasn't a big deal. I wasn't getting yelled at for those things. And so I could focus on other things.
Don't worry, I was getting yelled at for you.
Yeah. How do you guys know each other?
Oh yeah, I guess I left that out of the introduction. We don't want our classmates making fun of us.
Mm-hmm.
Kim and I are classmates from the class of 1997.
What do you guys, you're supposed to say something when you say your class.
Oh, yes. Keep it Revin 97 was our class motto. Yes.
Keep it Revin. It rhymes.
Yeah.
It grows on you as time passes.
It does. Now it's not, it's 20 years plus, right? So
I think about that. I cannot believe 1997 was that long ago. I was having a conversation with my husband. I'm like, yeah, but when I was in college and I started to finish the sentence, and he goes, over 20 years ago? Like,
oh, well, yeah, now I mentor cadets at the academy, and I have been an academic advisor for cadets, and I'll sit and get to know them. And I say, oh, I graduated from the academy in 1997. And one of the cadets looked at me and said, oh, that was the year that I was born. And I just realized that it's not as recent as I think it is.
And keep telling ourselves it's recent. We keep telling ourselves it's recent.
I know. Well, and I look around the academy now, and many of our classmates are in leadership positions at the academy. So I know it's not very recent, but it's still, I don't know, good memories. I think you forget the hard stuff.
I know I have good memories. I keep thinking of a couple of the A's I did get was because you were my project partner. Gracious enough to work with me on a small satellite design class. It was like, I cannot remember what it was all about, but
I can't either. I worked very hard at the academy because I wanted good grades so I could go to pilot training. It was all incentive for me. It was get good grades, go to pilot training.
Any class I had with Kim brought up my GPA.
That's good.
To graduate.
I'm super grateful for that. It really did, because I was in the bottom 50% of our class and had to work my way up to make sure. So,
but why? Why were you about? What was the degree you were in?
I think my ego a little bit got the better of me, and I declared a major that I may have not been fully prepared for. So I wanted astronautical engineering because, like Kim, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I might have had a skewed idea of what really my math skills were, because I'd always been a straight A student. And going to the Air Force, that was the first time I wasn't a straight A student in my life.
It was hard. I got a C in engineering mechanics. And I was also an astro major because I wanted to be an astronaut. And to me, that was the path. And then I struggled in engineering mechanics and decided to go with a different major, and dropped astro and became a space operations major, which I did much better at, and therefore got a higher grade point average, which allowed me to get the pilot slot that I wanted. So
I should have done it sooner than I did. I think I held on too long and accepted a few more C's than I probably could have excelled a little bit better had I changed a little bit. But
that's all right. I was a psychology degree. and human counseling and development. And I had a great GPA until like my last semester, 2 semesters of the academy, because I was just partying so much. I mean, I have no excuse other than like I was going out every night and, you know, breaking every rule that I possibly could. I didn't break any rules. I was a totally good cadet.
I absolutely believe you. I don't. I
So
don't.
okay, so you get through the academy, you manage through the degree, and then how did you end up? You know, what was your path to flight? What, you know, how did you decide on which aircraft you wanted to fly?
So I think I knew from the beginning, just the whole path in my mind from 5th grade was fighter pilot. You know, that was the way to be an astronaut. And so I knew from pilot training that I really wanted to go to the fighter track. And then I got to pilot training and I had no problem with the academics. It was fine. I studied, I worked hard, but I had a terrible problem with air sickness and I puked my way through pilot training.
Oh no.
And I had to kind of reassess on occasion, you know, if it was meant for me or if I was meant for it, because it was pretty miserable to get airsick on every single ride. Mm-hmm. And I got to the point where I started getting an unsat on the ride, right? We call them being hooked on the ride, where I would get an unsat, yep. And really getting close to not making it. I finally went through a program where they spin you around in a chair called the Barony chair. It's a torture device, but it got me over air sickness. And I was able to kind of progress and do well enough at the end game to get the fighter slot. But it was kind of some, you know, internal reflection of like, do I really want to do this? Am I really cut out for it? Mm-hmm. And it just took my body some time to adjust and get used to it. And then it was like, then it was just past and I was beyond that. And it was so great to just focus on flying and not having to worry about puking in an air sickness bag as you fly. I just really started talking to people about the missions of the airplanes, and I got very excited about, I love the low level missions in T-38, so the air-to-air work, like right formation where you're trying to stay next to somebody, it was like, okay for me. But the low levels, I love them. And talking to people about close air support and supporting our troops on the ground was just, I don't know, for me, it was, I really connected with the idea. And so that's why I decided I'd go after the A10.
And supporting helicopter pilots.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you know, I always said it. If I did not fly the A10, I think flying a helicopter would have been like for me where it was at, because I love, you know, we work, you know, whether it's special forces or medevac, CSAR, you name it, we work so closely. So we really got to see what they do. And I don't know, it's that same type of support to our ground troops just in a different way. And I love that. I love being able to come back from a mission and know that you save someone's life, you help them get home to their families. You know, it's a nice way to think about it.
And it's really cool when we're flying low level in the desert at 50 to 100 feet and the A10 comes raging through our windscreen. So cool.
It's fun for us too. I mean, it's, I love it. I mean, we don't fly at 50 feet. We'll fly at 100 feet. But you know, it's just, I don't know. It's fun. I love it. I still, to this day, my final flight in the A10 was low level at 100 feet. Like we took off and we just stayed low level as long as we could, and then popped up just to shoot the gun and then got back down low in the terrain all the way back. And it was just, it's like everything good about flying the A10. Shoot the gun, fly low level, come home and land.
I was going to say, you know, one story about when I got sick. I've only got, I mean, I cannot imagine doing it every flight because it was my dollar ride, right? You just think, I'd been on a couple flights before, incentive flights as a cadet or whatever, but my dollar flight, the guy really wanted to make sure that I had a memorable experience. And I didn't bring a puke bag because I'm like, I'm Jen. I don't throw up.
I'm Jen.
And I got sick and I had to throw up in my glove.
Oh. So I still to this day carry an air sickness bag with me when I fly every time. And the nice thing is, now when I fly with cadets, I can share the story. Like you don't need to feel bad about it. Like I've been there, I've done it. So it allows me to connect with them a little bit. I still don't really like when they do it. It still grosses me out. And I still but I've been there, I've done it. And I still carry my air sickness bag to this day on every flight.
Smart.
Wise. Saying advice
there. You don't have to pull a Jen.
Yeah, no thanks.
Oh, I got this.
I never got actively airsick. My problem was with passive air sickness, which is just feeling like you have this miserable headache the whole time, and you feel like you have to throw up. It was terrible.
Maybe once your body adjusts, it's so nice, right? Yes. Like once it's gone, it's like, oh, it's just like you've accomplished something, and you can get beyond it.
There's one other time I threw up, and that was in the back of an HC-130 refueling helicopters. Holy crap. I had to I was the lieutenant colonel, and I was watching as the crews, and I look at the loadmaster, I'm like, how are you doing this? I had to go sit down. I had my head down. All my bros are on the drogue. They're like, is that Opke? I was like, oh my God, this is the worst.
I must have been flying.
What's that?
I must not have been flying the airplane.
Matt Letty.
Sorry. There's some good tidbits of advice in there from both of you. For Kim, coming from the path that you thought you were going to go didn't come exactly as you planned. You redirected, still achieved some things. Because I know, Jen, when you asked, you get through the Air Force Academy and then on to pilot training. In between there, Kim was a Marshall Scholar. Oh. So she went off and got 2 degrees. So she had the really long way to pilot training.
Yeah.
So it was pretty awesome experience. I have to say, it was hard watching all of my classmates and friends go to pilot training and they were getting their airplanes, they're going off and doing these things. But being in England for 2 years was just a fantastic experience, especially after being at the academy for 4 years, to go to a university and experience the university life and, live in an apartment, a flat in downtown London.
Wow.
And all of my fellow students were international students. I think there were 2 Americans in the whole course. So it's just a great experience to kind of do something a little different and learn differently, because they study completely differently. It wasn't so regimented and strict, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was a great 2 years to kind of relax, reflect, and then get ready to go to pilot training and totally commit to it.
They were just saying, went from regimented and strict to 2 years of school, and then you jumped right back into pilot training.
Yeah, that's why I was saying it was a nice break, because pilot training was right back into it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No joke. Okay. So I want to know, it's killing me. What was your mission? What was that like? The day out for us? What was the setup? What happened?
So this was 2003. And in 2003, I was fairly new to the squadron. So I had gone, because of grad school, I had gone through A10 training when 9/11 happened, and got to my first unit in December of 2001. And so I was there for a couple months. We deployed to Afghanistan right away, and then home for a couple months, and then right back to Iraq, which at the time was what we all wanted to do, right? We all were ready to go. And so we got to Iraq in early 2003. I was still a wingman. I honestly didn't know if I would even get to fly. I thought they might bring some of us to work in our mission planning cell to prepare all the products. But we were so busy that everybody got to fly. And I suppose we had been flying for about a month. About a month. War kicked off. And as the Army moved closer and closer to Baghdad, the requests for close air support increased in intensity. So for a while, there were times where we'd come back from a mission and we hadn't done anything because the Army was moving so fast, there was so little resistance. And then we got to Baghdad and everything changed. And the way we were conducting missions is we would actually take off from Kuwait and then fly all the way to Baghdad. air refuel because it's an A10 and it takes us an hour to get there, and we got to air refuel before we can go do a mission. But then we would just wait in these stacks around Baghdad and hold, and we would wait because there was so much going on the ground that they would kind of funnel you in from wherever you were at to provide support to our troops on the ground. So April 7th was the day, and the weather was terrible. We couldn't see the ground. I mean, the closer we got to Baghdad, the worse and worse it got. And we refueled after barely finding the tanker. And we were just in and out of the clouds, couldn't see the ground when we got a call that there was troops in contact. One of the ground controllers from the 3rd Infantry Division, their team was taking fire. They were actually hunkered down waiting for resupply, and they were low on ammo. And they called the troops in contact and wanted us in there as quickly as they could. They said that Iraqi Republican Guard was on the east side of the Tigris River, and our guys were on the west side. And they were just hitting them with rocket-propelled grenades, RPGs. So we just, as fast as we could, first we plotted everything on the map, and because we couldn't see the ground, so I'm just, paper map, grease pencil, plotting friendly coordinates and enemy location. Yeah. And then again, just trying to get there as quickly as we could, went right over to the coordinates, and my flight lead and I talked about it, and he said, all right, just, I'm going to find a hole in the clouds and I'll tell you what I find and you can follow me down through. And so he finds a hole and disappears, and he's gone. And it's like, there's just me. And then I see the hole in the clouds, and he says, all right, it's your turn. And he says, get down below. When you get down below the weather, keep your jet moving and go to the west side of the river. And so I do my spiral down below the weather. I pop out, and we are low below the clouds. And so I can just see this firefight happening back and forth across the river. I'd never seen anything like it before, partially because we were so low. I could just see these flashes and smoke. And it was this moment of it was so surreal, because this is everything that we had trained for, we talk about, we practice, but like to actually see it is a little bit eye-opening. And my flight lead is immediately ready to roll in to do a gun run. And then as we're kind of talking and communicating about what we're going to do, I start to see these like puffs of smoke and flashes and around my cockpit now. So not just looking down below. And it's the moment that I kind of realized they're not just shooting at each other on the ground, we're taking fire as well.
Wow.
So we know we got to get in quick, right? Because now we're getting shot at, we're low below the weather, but it's a troops in contact. And so we're going to do just a couple passes and then climb back up to get our energy back and reassess everything. And so we elect to do gun and rockets. So our target is underneath a bridge, like an everyday overpass that you would see in a downtown. So it's underneath the bridge is where they're hiding. And so we've got to get low and get right at the right angle to get the rockets and the gun underneath the bridge. And so we do a couple passes, and it's my last rocket pass. We're already talking about as soon as I'm done, we'll climb up, we'll reassess. So I'm just trying to get everything set up, trying to keep my airplane moving, check everything to make sure it's set correctly, and then roll in. I can see the bridge so clearly. I mean, because we're low again, and I hit my pickle button, our weapons release button, and 7 rockets come out, and I can see the rockets hit and then start climbing up and trying to just pull to get away from the ground and keep my airplane moving. And as I'm trying to climb, I'm just like completely rocked in the cockpit. I mean, it felt like a car crash, like just rammed at the back of the airplane. And my airplane noses over, and immediately I know I'm hit. There's no doubt in my mind. I pull back on the control stick, and like nothing happens at all.
Nose down.
Yeah, nose down. I see Baghdad. I can like see the ground getting closer. And it's that moment of like, I might have to eject over Baghdad. Like time now slows down completely. I look down at those ejection handles, and I'm thinking, there is no way I want to ride a parachute down into central Baghdad where I was just strafing the enemy. I mean, it's not going to go well for me. so I do what we do. You guys will know from pilot training. It's, maintain aircraft control, analyze the situation, take the proper action, land as soon as conditions permit. So I cannot maintain aircraft control. Like, I just can't. I'm trying and nothing is happening. So, next step, analyze. And it's not like I'm thinking about this at the time, but it's just flowing to me of, I got to do something. I've got the master caution light flashing at me. I look down at my caution panel, which it's like lit up like a Christmas tree. It tells me that everything that's wrong in the airplane. And I see the hydraulic pressure and reservoir lights are on. And then I look up at the gauges right above it, and they're both at 0, telling me I have no hydraulics. There is, other than ejecting, there is only one thing I can do at this point, and I immediately flip a switch over on the other side of the airplane. It's called manual reversion. It's just a backup emergency system. And I flip the switch and the airplane immediately starts to climb. And that's kind of this first moment where I think I could actually make it out of there alive. At some point I radio my flight lead to tell him that I'm hit. And I just can't even fathom what it would have been like to go through that alone, because he was so, good and directive with me, because all I could do was try to fly the airplane. Like, I did not have time to think about all these external things. And so when I said two's hit, he immediately went into this reactive mode of just being directive with me to tell me what to do. He told me to put out more chaff and flare, which is just a system that puts out bright flares and metal chaff, so that if they're still shooting at us, ideally then the missile or AAA can, potentially go after something else and not my airplane. He was telling me to go west, to go over where the friendlies were, because he has awareness of like, hey, you got to get over friendlies, because if you have to eject, at least you're over the good guys and not the bad guys. And I did not have the brain bites to think of things like that at the moment. And then he told me to emergency jettison everything on my airplane. So I was really heavy because we had bombs and bullets and missiles, rockets. And so it was really hard to climb. And so when he told me to climb, I said, I can't. I mean, this is all I can say is just, I can't. He immediately says emergency jettison, and I do. And now I'm able to climb. And so we talk a lot about, the importance of a wingman and the importance of working together as a team. And I mean, this, to a T is exactly what it's about, right? Is in that moment in combat, being there for the person that, you're there to support. And it was incredibly helpful. And we've changed our training to this day. And we talk about these things more because, you always want to be there for your wingman and do what you can to help them survive. And he absolutely helped me get out of that situation and then get out of Baghdad. Because at this point we're still in Baghdad, they're still shooting at us, and we still kind of got to get out of the city. And then it was just, once we got above the weather and out of Baghdad, it was kind of like, okay, take a deep breath, time to reassess and kind of figure out where we go from here.
Wow. Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get into base, right? You land, and what was
yeah. So I had a choice really to try to get back to base, and the idea was get back to friendly territory and eject, not eject in Iraq, or get back to friendly territory and attempt to land the airplane. So manual reversion is one of these things that we don't actually train in very often. So this is the backup emergency system that I was talking about. It's, let's say it's like cranks and cables, old school, just mechanical flying. And we train to it once during our initial training, just to feel how the airplane responds, but we actually don't train to land in it at all. And so I knew trying to land was a risk. I had an hour to fly the airplane to think about it and get a feel for how the airplane was flying. I had a very experienced flight lead with me. And then thankfully the winds back at home base were straight down the runway. So no crosswinds, just straight down the runway. My engines thankfully survived the shrapnel damage. And I just felt very comfortable with the way the airplane was flying. I knew that I could eject the last minute. We have a 0-0 seat in the A10, meaning that I can eject at 0 feet off the ground and 0 knots, and it's supposed to be effective. So I felt like I had that as a last resort. But I really felt comfortable with the way the airplane was flying, and so decided I was going to try to land the airplane. was a really hard decision, honestly. I was kind of hoping my flight lead would make the decision for me. It would be a lot easier that way. But the other, the thing that he did was empowered me to make the decision. It was single seat airplane. And so he said, KC, it's your call. I'll back you up with whatever you decide. And that gave me confidence too, right? If he had the confidence in me to do that. So yeah, brought the airplane back in, and it flew pretty well the whole way back. It was pretty exhausting, I'd say, from a mentally, just the challenge of knowing what was ahead. And then physically, just the airplane was difficult in that backup mode. But I was really thankful to get it on the ground. There was this moment of, I don't know, terror, I would say, where as I came in to cross the landing threshold, the airplane kind of just started this roll. And as it got into the ground effect, and I had this moment of like, is the airplane going to flip over on its back? I mean, do I even now have time to eject? Ejecting like this would not have been so good. And so just, quickly yanked the stick back, the airplane leveled out, and then just put it on the deck. And I will say on the deck, like a Navy power on carrier hard landing was what we wanted. And so got it on the ground, and then just pure relief, relief to be back on the ground, that it was done, that I survived. And I will tell you, the best part of all of it was rolling down the runway. I was so relieved. I didn't really think about stopping the airplane, really long runway in Kuwait, using an emergency backup system, but hearing all the guys on the radio, because they had been standing by in their airplanes waiting to launch, because they were going to launch for a CSAR if I had actually been shot down. And they were up in the tower as a supervisor of flying. And so just hearing their voices on the radio, one of them was our classmate, Jason Rushoff, Ox Rushoff, was in his jet waiting to go do a CSAR, potential CSAR. And hearing his voice on the radio, just saying like, welcome home, KC, it was pretty damn cool, I have to say.
That's amazing. What a crazy story.
Yeah. 17 years ago, and it's still like, I don't know, I can still see it.
You can still see that bridge.
I can still see the bridge. I can see like the runway and the concentration of coming into land. Yeah.
Would you, I mean, given your experience and what you went through, would you ever have thought to, like, if you had the opportunity to do it all over again, would you?
Everything? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that experience, I mean, all my experiences, the academy and pilot training and the challenges of it all, but that experience specifically, I think, has made me who I am today. I think if I look at that experience and that mission, I'm a better pilot because of it. I'm a better person because of it. I think it helped me really put life into perspective. I think, when you have those, I don't know, life-changing crucible moments, it's an opportunity to reflect and figure out what your priorities are. And, I took a lot of lessons learned from that. I felt like I really wanted to share them with the young A10 pilots, and we changed the way we did training. I changed the way that I instructed as an A10 instructor. And I think it just helped me really prioritize what was important to me and what I wanted to focus on in life. And so, yeah, I mean, life-changing moment. I don't really want to go through it again, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change the experience.
I just asked that because, there's a lot of young ladies out there that, or even young men too, they don't want to take that risk. They're scared of that risk. And, well, what does that really risk look like? And, is it worth it? And I think you just explained how it is worth it.
Yeah, it's worth it. I think every challenge you face, every hard thing that you do is really where you learn and grow the most. I mean, if it was easy, you wouldn't really, improve. And I think, I've worked pretty hard. I've had plenty of challenges, and I think when you go through those, it just makes you a better, stronger person. It makes you more thankful for the things that you do have, and the good things. So yeah, I mean, it's worth it. It's all worth it. It hasn't been easy. I mean, I won't sugarcoat that. None of it's been easy, but it's been worth it.
I think that's a good point to get out there, because we've had some conversations with other people of, no, it's not easy, but it's worth it. So I think that should be our tagline. It's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not. None of it's been easy. I mean, getting into the academy pilot training, none of it's not easy. But don't get me wrong. I mean, we had a ton of fun along the way too. I mean, otherwise, why would you keep doing it? I mean, it's something that makes me happy and I enjoy. It's still hard, but I've had a lot of fun, and I've met a lot of really great people along the way, which I think is the thing that, you know, that's what keeps you around the most, is the people and the relationships that you have. And, you know, if I didn't enjoy like all those guys in my fighter squadron and feel that respect and camaraderie of being deployed and, you know, going into combat, knowing that we're not, you know, we might not all make it home, but knowing that we're there for each other, like that, just that, I love that. I love that feeling. I love that, the camaraderie, that relationship that you build when you are in those tough moments, because I think it brings you closer together.
That's so important. You know, I think that sometimes this feminist narrative of like, they're all out to get us and they don't want us to succeed and all, it's not true. There's so many times when, you know, it's my brothers that really pull me through and I help them through, and we can't like forget that. I think it's just a really
No, I agree with you. I mean, that they're absolutely my brothers. They're my brothers to this day. I mean, we still keep in contact, and I have a really strong relationship with my very first fighter squadron, the 75th Fighter Squadron, the Tiger Sharks. Like, it just, those guys that I deployed with, I mean, I spent 4 years in one squadron, and just, you build a lot of relationships, and they were absolutely my brothers. They looked out for me. You know, they respected me because I was credible in the airplane. I mean, I had to prove myself just like everybody else. You know, when I walked into the squadron on day one, I was an unknown, you know, and so, yeah, I was, you know, being the only female sometimes is a little bit different and awkward, but, you know, the airplane doesn't care at all. It doesn't know the difference. And I think it was, for me, it was just, I was able to prove myself in the airplane very early in my career. And I think that really helped prove that I could go out there and do the job. And I earned the respect for my team. And I think that's the biggest part. Go out and, you know, be good at what you do and work hard at it and have a good attitude.
Yeah. Be good at what you do. Own your space.
Yeah.
It's super important. That's why Jen has been noticing I've been slowly setting up my office. That's why I wanted that picture there. I mean, when I got ready to go do a special mission assignment, it was a data masked assignment. And I remember being asked, "Are you sure you want to go there? You're probably going to be the only girl." And I wasn't worried about that anymore because so many other people had gone and done things and been the first.
Yeah.
That I knew the only way I'm going to be judged is if I can't do my job. So I just showed up, owned my space, and set out to be good at my job. And loved it. And those guys are still my favorite group of guys ever.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, we have about 10 minutes left. Carrie, do you want to ask those questions from your neighbor?
I would love to. So, like I was mentioning before, I've got a young neighbor who's involved in Civil Air Patrol and getting involved in junior ROTC and looking at what she wants to do next. And she wanted me to ask, if you didn't go to the Air Force Academy, where would you have wanted to go to school? What are some other colleges you considered?
So I'm thankful for my parents that made me consider other schools, because I did not want to. I only wanted to go to the academy. And I was like, it's the academy or nothing. And my parents were, you know, had a different view that I would go to school no matter what. And so for me, it was about I figured if I couldn't go to the academy, then I would try to get an ROTC scholarship. And I applied to Notre Dame, to UC San Diego, and to San Jose State. And I still only wanted to go to the academy. Like, that was it. I only wanted to go to the academy. But I actually got a rejection letter from the academy in about April of my senior year, which I was devastated. I mean, that was all I ever wanted to do. And so I accepted a 3-year ROTC scholarship to UC San Diego. To this day, I always wonder what life would have been like if I went to UC San Diego. I might not have done as well. The beach would have been calling. But I was planning to go to UC San Diego. Like, I was picking out dorms and working on roommates. And, you know, I just knew, I was like, well, I guess, you know, the academy's not going to work out. But at the same time, I was so committed to going to the academy that even though I was doing all the stuff for UC San Diego, I was writing the academy every week, I wrote the admissions office. I would send them letters to let them know that I was still interested. So if somebody else turned down their appointment, like I'm going to be ready. I told them, like, if I got another A on a test, if I could do 5 more push-ups, you name it. I was like, I'm still trying, I'm still in. And my liaison officer actually said, he gave me the idea. He said, you know, Kim, if you show up on admission day and somebody doesn't get off the bus or decides not to walk up the ramp, if you're there, you know, they might just take you. And so that was my plan. I literally was going to show up.
I love that plan.
How much I wanted to go.
I love that plan.
I didn't have to go through with it because I got my acceptance on June 2nd.
Wow.
To report on June 28th to go to the academy with the class of 97. So I eventually got my appointment. And funny story, after basic training, I got a letter on my desk in my dorm room at USAFA at the academy that said, Cadet Reed, that was my maiden name, report to Harmon Hall to this room. And Harmon Hall's like the big headquarters building. And I was like, am I in trouble? Like, what is going on? And I, you know, talked to the upperclassmen. They're like, yeah, you better go. And, you know, they told me how to get there. I look at the room number when I get there. It's the admissions office. And they're like, we had to meet the cadet that sent us letters every week.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if it made a difference or not, but I was just super committed to going to the academy, and thankful that it turned out the way it did. But to truly answer your neighbor's question, I would say, you know, with anything, you know, with choosing a major, with choosing a school, find somewhere that will make you happy, somewhere that you will enjoy. And because if you're going to spend 4 years there and you're going to spend 4 years studying, you want to enjoy it. You want it to be a place that you want to be at. And that's for me how I made my selection. I grew up in California, and so I love the beach, and I decided UC San Diego, but then I had the ROTC piece. So I think it's just about choosing a place that you think you will enjoy, that will make you happy, because you will do better at it if it's something that you enjoy.
That's great advice. That's a great
question. Next question. We got like 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
Well, the next one, I think that we discussed, we have enough from that, because the other question was, were you always good in your classes at school? And if you weren't, what did you do to help make yourself better? And I think you answered that a couple of ways.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is no. I wasn't always good at school. I think I did work really hard. I studied a lot. I mean, it didn't come easy for me. And so I think getting help and admitting when you need help. At the academy, we had extra instruction.
Yes.
And so asking for that extra help, as painful as it is when you're trying to manage your time and there's so much going on, but recognizing when you're struggling, this is probably a life lesson as well, right? Recognizing when you're struggling and not being afraid to ask for help. Because, gosh, I say that out loud, and sometimes I still need to remind myself of that. But I think getting help when you need it, and, you know, not being afraid or too proud to admit that you need help in class.
I think
because just having that, like, as an instructor too, like, because I taught at the academy the past 2 years, like when my cadets would come ask me for help, like, tells me that they're interested and they want, you know, they're interested in their grades and they're involved. And so I think that goes a long way, just showing that you care, showing that you're going to work hard. But yeah, that's a life lesson. Ask for help when you need it. Gosh, there's so many times I should have done that.
I should almost make that a print and hang it on the wall in my house.
Yeah.
Because of how many times I've had to remind, I just push and push and push, and I go, I need help. But if I'd done it sooner.
Yeah, there's so many things that is applicable to. Gosh, well, we only have a few minutes left, so I won't go there yet.
One time, you'll come back, right?
Good. Yes, I will come back.
That would be great, because I think we've got a lot of good advice for young girls out there looking to pursue careers, and really, even if it's not in aviation, whatever their dream may be. These are lessons and stories that are applicable to whatever it is you want to go out and do. Of, hey, the first path may not work, find another one, have a backup plan, work really hard to get that first plan.
Yeah, and go after it. I mean, I kind of think about sometimes, like, if I just walked away from, after getting the rejection letter from the academy, when they said no, if I had just been like, all right, guess I'll go figure something else out, even though it was what I really, really wanted. And I just think about like all the opportunities I would have missed. And
love your story.
I'm thankful it all turned out the way that it did, as hard as it has been.
My final GPA is grateful that it did.
Yes,
you were there.
It's all worth it.
7.
It's worth it.
Well, Kim, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your stories and for sharing. I mean, this has been so exciting for me, like for the last 2 years. I can't wait to hear your story.
Thanks for having me. It was nice to meet you, and it's so great to see you, Carrie.
It's great to see you too, Kim. So I look forward to doing this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hiring, and you're like not having to juggle 1,000 things. It's not the holidays. We can dive more into some other.
Well, I can hear my kids outside the door. They're like, they get, they start getting anxious. I'm surprised they haven't come in. So
I don't know if you guys heard it, but I thought my husband was walking into the office, but it was my dogs busting through the door.
Nice.
So they just broke the door open. I don't know how.
Okay, I think that's a clear sign we need to push.
Clear sign that we need to go. But thanks again.
Kids and dogs.
Great,
all right.
great talking with you.
Thank you, guys.